The GallowgateShots podcast is sponsored by Tyre Spot, the North East's leading tyre supplier with branches across the region. Tyre Spot don't just do tyres, they cover everything from servicing to wheel alignment. They can handle every aspect of your car's maintenance. For more information, visit tyrespot.co.uk. Enjoy the episode.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the GallowgateShots YouTube and podcast channel. We are back with another match preview. The international break is finally over and we can return to normality yet again. It's only the second one this season. I mean, Christ, it's not even November yet. And I'm sure we've got another one before Christmas. But anyway, yes, we're back for the match preview against Brighton and Hove Albion to give them their full birth name. I'm sure they probably weren't, and it was Brighton and there was a Hove Albion team and they merged at some point, but I don't know. We're not into history. You want to learn about that, you can go watch a history channel. It's on Saturday the 19th of October. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff at St James's Park, and because it's a 3 p.m. kickoff, it's not on the telly. I'm Scott. I am your host for this one, and this week I'm joined by Andy and Daryl. Brighton, they're not doing too bad. They're above us, I think, on alphabetical order. I think that's how it's working because they're on the same points as us. Actually, no, it'd be goal difference. They're on the same points as us. They've got the same, the sixth in the league, 12 points, 3 wins, 3 draws, 1 defeat. They've scored 13 goals. They've conceded 10. So they're on a +3. I think we're on a +1, if I remember rightly, from the league. So it's goal difference in alphabetical order. That's not how it works. I don't even know why I said it. And just like every time... It's the international break. I'm going off those stupid rules that they have in the in whatever cup it is when they decide like best 4th place finisher gets through to the final rounds of whatever tournament it is. Silly rules. But anyways, let's move on to the commentator stats as always. Newcastle are unbeaten in their last 3 Premier League home games against Brighton. It's 2 wins and 1 draw. After having failed to win any of the first 4 home games against them without scoring a single goal. And that was 2 draws and 2 defeats. So, yeah, we turned that one around. Let's hope we can continue that run. Brighton have lost just 2 of their 14 Premier League matches with Newcastle. That's 5 wins and 7 draws for Brighton. Though both defeats have come across the last 3 visits to St James's Park, which obviously I did touch upon. Although they've lost just 1 of their last 8 Premier League games, Newcastle are winless in their last 3. We all know about that. 2 draws, 1 defeat. However, at home, we are unbeaten in our last 11 with 6 wins and 5 draws. Brighton have conceded 8 goals in their last 3 Premier League games. It's 2-2 against Forest, 4-2 against Chelsea, that was a defeat, and a 3-2 victory against Tottenham. 1 more, and they've had their previous 8 matches. 1 more than they had in their previous 8 matches combined. The Seagulls haven't conceded 2+ goals in more consecutive league games since March 2022. That's a run of 6. So I think, like I've said every single week now, don't let that influence your predictions at the end.
Too late.
But Brighton have scored 2+ goals in each of their last 3 Premier League games. Last having a longer such run in January 2023, where it was 5 games. They've netted multiple goals in 5 of their 7 league games so far this season, having failed to do so in any of their final 13 in the 23-24 season. So with that in mind, it's going to be a 0-0 draw. Andy, mate, I quite like Brighton. I don't have a bad word to say about them. I think they play really nice football. They do really good business in the transfer window. They tend to buy low and sell high, and they improve. And that's what I like. They don't just sell the good players and buy mediocre players to replace them. They kind of always buy better players that seem to replace the players that they've had, either like for like, or like I say, it's an improvement. And also we can't ignore the fact they've got one Yakubu Minty, who we reluctantly sold to them.
Yeah, I think I would have a different opinion of Brighton if they'd actually pipped us to the league in the Championship. I think the fact we managed to beat them that season means I don't really have a bad word to say about Brighton. They just seem like they're just sort of a nice club from top to bottom, aren't they? They're well run.
Yeah.
They've got a good manager. there's not really any players in the team that you hate and you want to get sent off, unlike with lots of other teams. So yeah, Brighton are just one of those nice teams, and I think the thing about Brighton is if you've got Chelsea on one end of the spectrum in terms of how to run a football club, you've got Brighton all the way on the other end, just reaping the rewards of all those years they slogged in the Championship, building up all the infrastructure and the scouting network and everything like that. And they always just seem to have a plan B for everything, and plan C, plan D.
Yeah.
Like obviously, lost Tutin, got Potter. Potter was the hot thing. They lost him, and then they seemed to get even better with De Zerbi, and then suddenly that just fell off a cliff. I don't really know what happened there, but then now they've got this Herzler guy who's a year older than me, and I'm only like 19-year-old. So like he's Ben. He's a Ben, but I think he's the youngest manager ever in the Premier League, and again they just start the season amazing. Like, the only defeat they've had this year in the league was Chelsea, and that was that ridiculous game when Palmer scored 4 goals and my FPL team dropped like 5 million ranks. So they're just a nice team. I think, not jumping too far ahead, but I think the only game they've had where there hasn't been a goal was Ipswich, when it was just a complete defensive masterclass from Ipswich and they couldn't put the ball away. Danny Welbeck's somehow their best player out of nowhere, and then they've got all these really good options, young attacking players who at the start of the season you watch Match of the Day for the first time in the season, you go, I have no idea who this guy is, who the hell is Buonanotte, and then he bangs in a 40-yard screamer a week later, and they're just like, who are all these players? So I think it'll be a really interesting test coming back from the international break.
Yeah, it's almost like, Daryl, you always think of Brighton as we are their bogey team. Like you think of, over the past couple of seasons, they're the ones who are flying high, then they come to St. James's and we bring them back down to earth. It's happened a couple of times. And then the exact opposite happens when we visit them. Like, we're the ones flying high, and then we visit them and they batter us. So it's kind of like we have a good little sparring match between each other throughout the season, and it's a good little back and forth. And obviously they've got the players. I think, did they still have James Milner? Is he still playing for them?
He's still
I
there.
think
He
he's
was
still on
there
the
last
pitch,
season,
yeah.
I remember. So I think he's still there. So they've got players that you like. I mean, I'm not just saying because of James Milner, but they've got some good players. I've watching them this season, I couldn't tell you what their formation is. I don't even know if they have a formation. I was trying to watch. I think, is it James Lawrence Alcott did a video on them, and he was just like, I don't even know what their formation is this season, because they don't seem to have a set one. So Brighton fans, if you're watching, if you know, let us know, because
Let Eddie Howe
I can't
know.
figure it out. Let everyone know, yeah, because we don't know what your style of playing are. Yeah, and let Eddie Howe know by Friday, please. But what do you see this game going? Is it going to be a tough slog for us? Is this our hardest test outside of the top 6 so far this season?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, I think it is. And the one thing that really strikes me, and it actually is a cause of great concern for me going into this game, is, and we've just mentioned it there about the formation, it's the fluidity of how that team performs, and how, we talk about how they played under De Zerbi and under Potter, and the one thing I have to just sidestep very briefly is I have to give Brighton credit for their model, and it's a data-driven approach that they use. So when something goes awry and they change managers or they lose a player, they go into their data bank and they go through all of the algorithms and they do all this technical stuff with the data sets that they have, which is something that they had courtesy of Ashworth when he was director of football.
Boo.
Yeah, exactly.
He shall not be named. He shall not be named.
Bleep it out.
Yeah, exactly. But so they go into this little data bank of theirs, and they can then put all these numbers in, number crunch a load of things, and they can then come up with a solution. And they always, certainly in cases of the manager situation, they always pick a manager who who is suited to their model. It's not the other way around. It's not like picking a guy based on name and reputation, which is why you come out with the likes of a De Zerbi, and forgive me because I can't remember the current guy's name. But Ursula, yeah. So they go out and they find these like untapped names from somewhere, but it's because they fit the model that Brighton used. So getting back to the formation, and like I say, the fluidity of that formation is the thing that worries me the most, and because I don't know how we'll be able to deal with it. Our way of playing is, whether it's to our detriment or not, our way of playing is quite structured. I don't want to say rigid, because we do have some flexibility in terms of wingers swapping over and bits and bobs and certain midfielders pressing forward at certain times of the game. But our main structure is quite set in a way that it's mapped out. You know it straight away. Eddie Howe plays 4-3-3. Two wide men, one centre forward, 3 in midfield, and then the back 4. You can't say that for Brighton. You just don't know. Sometimes it might be a 3 with 2 wing backs who are pushing forward. Their midfielders can just move around and all occupy each other's positions. To be honest, it's a dream kind of formation and system to play because it just puts the opposition into pandemonium. They don't know how to set up, how to organise, who to mark, when to make a run, when to retreat, when to backtrack, or when to follow a man because somebody be there to fill that space. And it's really technical and really difficult to try and match. And I think in terms of that, then this game is definitely one of our biggest tests. In fact, I think it's probably more of an intellectual challenge than even Man City because we know Man City now under Pep has a style of play. You can sort of pick out how Man City, which players are going to pop into which hole and who's going to pick up the ball, who's going to play, who's going to go down the wing, and etc. Whereas you can't really tell with Brighton. It's really difficult to tell. And I am a little bit worried about this going into this game.
Yeah, I suppose the one thing we've had going forward, Andy, is we've had 2 weeks to prepare. We've had the international break, so Eddie Howe's had, obviously we've had players away, but we haven't had that many away. So the players that have stayed, he's had 2 weeks to drill whatever game plan he's got against Brighton, and whether you can even draw up a game plan because we've already said nobody knows how they play. Maybe he's looked at the Ipswich game and thought, that's how you play against Brighton. That's how we play against Brighton. I mean, it might not be a nice game to watch, and we're at home, but that's how you defend. And then maybe we've got a bit more going forward. When you look at, that Ipswich game, we can get them on that counter attack, like how we like to play. We all know we play our best football when we haven't got the ball. You could argue it could be that these 2 weeks, this international break, this is the best time to play Brighton when you've had a bit more time to prepare and you've had a bit more time to actually work on how you line up against this sort of team when you're entering the unknown.
Yeah, I think I take Daryl's point and I agree. I think where I would probably draw the line is the fact that we are at home and we have seen on many occasions now that Eddie Howe, when he has got the time to prepare and he really gets it, he can outdo anyone tactically. I mean, we've seen there's been a couple of times where he's caused Guardiola problems. Obviously, we know about the Champions League where defensive masterclass against Milan away, even though we were pretty lucky. But then PSG, we obviously dismantled them, and plenty of other times. I mean, De Zerbi last year, I think it was last year or maybe the year before, when we turned them over 4-1 at home. That was another. Sometimes Howe can just do people over. So as much as Brighton's system is very clever in terms of its chaos, they will have patterns of play, and Howe and the coaching staff will know the best way to do it. And on the flip side, you play against a fluid team. There's gaps everywhere, and we know that with our running and our intensity, if it is there, because it seems to have come back a little bit off the ball, we can win the ball back, and there should be gaps. It's just whether we can get those moments in the game that we can make the most of, because the Everton game, I actually think we played pretty well. It was just Niebuhr wanting to put the ball in the goal, which is quite an important part of football. So I think it will be one of those games where there'll be lots of moments for both teams, and we've just got to make sure that when those moments pop up for us in front of goal, we're putting them away, because as we've said, Brighton pretty much always score, so we've got to make sure we're scoring at least 2.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, if we turn our attention to us, that hopefully we're going to have at least a striker available, because all press conferences leading up to this, and I'm talking every single week, it's been Callum Wilson has been aiming for this game when he's on his return. We're hoping Isak is going to be fit for this one. This was the game that he's taken for, so we should have 2 strikers available. I'm not saying Callum Wilson's going to start by any stretch of the imagination, Daryl, but
We have a striker. Doesn't play him.
We have one. We have at least one that should be available, and if not, we've got one who can come on the bench to cause a bit of trouble. I mean, and we've got Alusa or Sula who we should be playing, but maybe I don't know what's going on. But we've got Wilson hopefully back. We've got Isak who should be back. We could cause him a bit of damage, and you'd like to think their manager's thinking, oh, hang on, Newcastle are getting a bit of form. We saw them against Everton. Yeah, we couldn't score, but we're starting to play that football again. We give Man City a good run for their money. Maybe, they're having to adjust their gameplay because of us. They know what their records are against us of recent time.
Yeah, I think the counter-attacking side of the argument is definitely prevalent there, because us with our pace against their centre-backs, especially one Lewis Dunk, who's getting on a bit, and he's not really the fastest guy in the world, so we can get at their back line. And if we can sort of like subdue them into committing down the wings and drawing their left or right back or wing backs or wherever into the game, then we will open up opportunities and we'll open up space down the sides and be able to break on them with accuracy and pace. And I think as much as we desperately needed a Wilson or an Isaac or even an Osula in the middle against Everton, because there was massive gaps when we got it forward and there was just nobody in the middle to collect those crosses. Again, if we can play the front three, which has Gordon, Barnes, and Murphy, for example, or Miggy, if he is chosen, it's a front three that has pace in it, and it's a front three that can really frighten a slow back line and get in behind, or really just you want them to be able to run at them and get people turned and running back towards their own goal, because that's where they can make a mistake. And again, if we can add a Wilson or an Isaac into that equation, then the potency of our attack should be very strong, and there should be goals in there. I think it will. It's going to play a major part if one of those two main first choice strikers is fit, but we shouldn't be too disheartened if they don't make it and we have to rely on Gordon through the middle again.
Yeah. If we talk about Tino Livramento, Andy, just for a minute, obviously he's kind of being forced to play because Trippier's injured. Just when everyone was saying we really need Trippier to be starting these games because of the way he settles the side, do you need to maybe pull the reins a little bit on Livramento and ask him not to push forward as much as he likes to do because of the pace that Brighton have on the wing and the gaps he'll be leaving by doing that, given you could argue the lack of pace we have in our centre backs? Do you maybe need to, say to Tino, look, you can go forward, when you can, but be mindful, get back.
Yeah, I think if you're playing Football Manager, you set him to balance rather than attack. But I mean, it's very likely he's going to be up against Mitoma, and I think Livramento has shown that he's a really good 1v1 defender. But I mean, Mitoma's got like literally a degree in skinning people. Like he's got some. he did some research paper on dribbling the ball, didn't he? Yeah. So I think of all the people to come up against, I mean, maybe just call him a nerd the whole time you're playing against him.
Nerd.
But no, I agree. I think obviously start of the season, I think a lot of people had kind of just put Trippier by the wayside. And obviously there was good reason for that for some of it, because there was clearly disruption in his life and he'd made a few mistakes last season and things like that. But when Trippier's come back in, I think we've all seen the lift that the whole team gets, not just that side of the pitch. I think his composure and the leadership and just that extra bit of time he gives the rest of the team on the ball, I think is massive. But I think with Livramento, we've seen the best of him, I think, in the PSG away game when he won the ball high up and then dribbled with it and then effectively created the goal. But he's still very much a rough diamond, isn't he? I think his defensive ability is good, but I think a bit like Lewis Hall, he can be a bit too gung ho, and whether that's tactical instructions or what, I don't know. But I think just as the way the midfield is at the moment, it does feel like teams can still run through us quite easily. So I don't know what the tactics off the ball is going to be with whether he says to Hall to go inside to the midfield or whatever. I don't really know. I think what we've seen with teams like Brighton who try and get it up the pitch quickly, and it worked really well against Man City, is just getting the centre backs just to slam into the centre forwards and push right up the pitch when they get the ball, and that's something Botman used to do really well. So if we can keep that sort of intensity in the defending going and we win the ball, if you've got Livramento high up the pitch, then he's giving support to someone like Murphy or Almiron, who we know they do need that bit of extra help. But I still back him to be the number one right back, as much as I love Trippier. I think his part's very much supporting when he's needed.
Absolutely. And the question would be, Daryl, obviously, we do have a surprise guest. Yes, Lenny's made an appearance. Daryl, if Tino is obviously forced to start and that, the hand is being forced there, The question is around Hall, really, and whether Eddie Howe wants to play, you could argue two young wingers or two young wing backs, or if he goes for Lloyd Kelly, who's got a bit more experience and is a bit more defensively minded and can slot in to maybe make it more of a back three if Tino does decide to push up forward a little bit further and play almost like a 3 centre back role when Tino pushes up, and then have Lloyd Kelly on the right hand side, on the left hand side, just to balance that back line a bit more. Would that be an option that you would maybe look to explore, or would you say no, let's just go for this and play Hall and Tino on Saturday?
I think it's a very viable option to consider. I mean, you can argue that you play both Tino and Hall because they're young and because they've got a bit of pace to their game. In terms of getting around the pitch or getting up and down those wings, they do have the engines and the ability to get up and down there quite quickly.
Well, I don't think Hall does have an engine. He's always blowing out of his backside after 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
More of a sports car than like an EcoBoost. Yeah.
But the point is still there that they are capable of getting up and down those wings quite quickly, even if Hall is going to be blown out after 15 minutes. But again, the argument is there, and I think yes, with Kelly on the left, but you could also argue on the other hand if you wanted to put Emil Kraft in on the right and do it that way and utilize Hall on his overlap on the left hand side. Or we may even see later in the game, we could see changes to that effect to try and shore up the back line to potentially see out the game or just to preserve what we have. It'll be interesting to see how Eddie approaches that. But I think certainly the option is there. And for me, from the off, I would be very tempted to play both the young'uns and make sure we can have a strong start to the game. And then you can fall back into the likes of your Lloyd Kellys and your Emil Crafts and use those guys to shore up the game later on, keep everything compact, keep everything tight. My biggest concern, and we've already covered it there, is the likes of Mitoma and even Minty on the wing. They're fast, they're dynamic, they can really hold the ball up. I think we've already seen so far that I think certainly with Minty that his final product is a little bit lacking, but it's still very dangerous.
Absolutely.
And I think,
but like
absolutely, So absolutely for me, go with the young'uns to start with, and then use your experience and your depth later in the game.
At home, you have to play on the front foot, and I think that's the way Eddie will be approaching it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I think also if we talk a little bit about the middle of the park just quick as well. And if you think about Sandro Tonali, is this a game for him to start? He obviously started, I think, it was against Everton. I'm trying to think back now. And did okay. I think second half he started to tail off a little bit, but he had a decent first half from what I remember. You've got him, Joe Linton would possibly start, and Joe Linton providing cover again for that back line. We've talked about needing that cover potentially for the pace, with then allowing Bruno to push up a bit further. Although was it only, I think we're recording this on the Wednesday, I'm sure Bruno only played last night on the Tuesday for Brazil. So does Bruno even get a game? I think he does. I don't think Bruno's. I think Bruno's pretty much undroppable. But you've got options. But to go back to Tonali, is he a player that has to be starting every week? Is he now embedded? Is he past that Eddie Howe embedment stage?
which is always like, it's the longest probation period ever in Eddie Howe's team, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I think with Tonali, and I'm sure most of our fans would agree with us now, he has to be starting every game. He's such a level above. I don't mean to call him out, but he's just a level above Longstaff, isn't he? The technical ability, the one-touch passing, the pass and move. He reads the game really well, and it's not like he's a luxury flair player. He's a grafter who gets his foot in and F's and blinds at the refs, and he knows how to do all the dirty stuff. So I think at this point, you're at home. We really want to be pushing for European places, if not the Champions League. You want a minimum European places. You've got a £80 million midfielder, however much we paid on him, just sat there, who's starring for Italy every international break, as we've just seen again. He was mint for Milan when he was there. You've got to be playing this guy, and Howe needs to find a way of getting those three ticking, because on paper, you look at our midfield compared to theirs, our midfield is unbelievable on paper. Bruno, Joe Linton and Tonali is like the perfect balanced midfield. I know we sometimes say that we lack a number 6 or a proper defensive midfielder, but in terms of creating chances and keeping the ball, and that sort of game plan, it should work. So I think we're still yet to see the best from Tonali, and I think that's maybe because he's playing on that right hand side, which is obviously a bit more disjointed. But I still think Joelinton, Bruno, Tonali should be starting every game at home, and then you've got decent options on the bench because I didn't mean to dig out Longstaff. I do still like Longstaff, and Willock's obviously great on his day as well. So we've got options there. The only downside to starting Tonali really is that you then look at the bench, and the bench does look a lot worse than if Tonali's there. But I think that's pointless. You have to start your best players, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah, you can have, was it 50, 60 million or 80 million as he's now worth, sitting on the bench when you are starting. And again, like you said, it's no disrespect, but when you are starting the likes of Sean Longstaff or even someone like Joe Willock, who they're not that level. There is a gulf between those two types of player. They're different players.
Saying, just saying about tactics before, if we're winning the ball high up the pitch, I'd rather the ball was at Tonali's feet to make a killer pass rather than Longstaff. And I think Longstaff's probably better at winning the ball high up the pitch, but we just need that technical ability when we're not putting the chances away. We need that extra ability.
Yeah, and he's good on set pieces as well, Daryl. I mean, he can whip in a free kick. I think he's even good on corners, although we don't see it. But now we don't have Trippier to take them. You've got Lewis Hall, and if Lewis Hall isn't playing, I think it's going to be Tonali or Gordon would be your two options for taking set pieces. Yeah. So he might be starting just for that fact alone. You've got to have someone on either side really to take take corners and free kicks. I love Murphy starts. Obviously, you've got Murphy, but let's not talk about that possibility for set pieces, because I don't think I've seen him on there. Anyways, let's talk about everyone's favourite part of the match previews, Daryl. Who is the man in charge?
End.
Let's go to let's wrap it up. Let's listen. No, let's have ref watch. Who's the man in the middle?
So we've got a man in the middle for this one is Peter Banks from over on Merseyside. We last saw him, sadly, in the 3-1 loss down at Craven Cottage earlier in the season, which was only his third game back after a long-term injury. He had a big break in his officiating between December of last year and the start of this season. His record for this season so far is just the 3 Premier League games. There's a League Cup game in there as well. But in terms of Premier League, 3 Premier League games, 15 yellow cards across those 3 games, and so far no reds. VAR is going to be Tony Harrington, a familiar name, from actually just down the road in the old Hartlepools. And we last saw Tony Harrington referee the 5-1 home win against Sheffield United last season. So again, somebody who's relatively low and somebody from the northwest there.
I had to Google him because I didn't know if he was a bald one. He's not bald, but he's getting there. He's got a big peninsula.
He's got a hair island going.
Yeah, well, not quite an island yet. It's still attached.
The tide's slowly going out.
Yeah, the erosion is bad.
The erosion is there. Wow, there we go. Well then, I suppose there's only one more thing to do, and that is come to our predictions. Like I said at the start of this, lots of goals, so take it away. Andy, what are you going for this time?
Oh, cheers, pal.
Well, that was just a breath watch, so you take turns.
Take turns, yeah. I think both teams to score. I'm going to be positive because I just fancy Eddie Howe to get it working this week, so I'm going to say a 3-1 win. If Isak's playing, it's a 3-1 win. If Isak's not playing, it's 4-0 defeat. But I think, 3-1 win.
Andy.
3-1 win. I fancy Gordon to get on the score sheet to make up for Everton a little bit, and then we'll get Joelinton a goal as well off a corner because they're a bit of a small side on set pieces as well.
And the third one?
Pope.
Sorry, you were naming 2, so I thought you.
I just carried on talking. Isak.
Again,
there we go. Isak, Gordon, and Pope.
Do you want the Brighton scorer as well? João Pedro. There you go.
Yeah, he's injured, isn't he?
Even better.
Oh, there you
Even
go.
better.
3-0,
He's going to come
3-0
off the
then.
bench. 3-0. There we go. Daryl, mate, what are you going for?
Well, we'll not take computer games as anything to go by, but I played this fixture on AAFC 25 just yesterday, and it ended with a 4-3 win to Newcastle. With
You playing on amateur
an
again?
absolute, no, world class. With an absolute
Ooh.
screamer, by the way, absolute screamer from Sandro Tonali in the 90th minute to win the game 4-3. But I don't think it's going to be quite as hectic as that. I'm going to go for the 3-2 win because I just, Brighton's unpredictability is just going to cause us problems, and I think we'll probably get a couple. But I fancy us to get 3 at home. For me, goal scorers, I'll say Gordon to make up for Everton, like Andy said. I fancy Harvey Barnes to either start and score or come off the bench and get one. And I'll go on for Sandro like the game did. Let's see how that goes.
Wow. Okay, then. So Gordon, Harvey Barnes, and Sandro Tonali 3-1 or 3-2, did you say? Sorry.
3-2.
3-2. Okay. So I was going to say 3-2. So I think I'll stick with it actually. Why not? Yeah, I think there's a lot of goals in this one. Like we said at the start of this in the commentator stats, Brighton have scored 2+ in every game, bar the Ipswich one, wasn't it? Yeah, in each of the last 3 Premier League games. So yeah, I mean the scoring for fun. We're not, but I think we're going to make amends for that this week. Because Brighton are conceding. I think they've scored 13, conceded 10. They're conceding as much as they're scoring of late. So yeah, why not? 3-2. I'm gonna go a bit left field with this one. I'm gonna go for a Tonali to start the proceedings.
He doesn't play
And I'm
left
going
field.
for a Callum Wilson brace off the bench.
Ooh.
I think he's going to
Nice.
come off the bench and score 2. So there you go, Callum Wilson to get 2 on there.
And
They're
then
going to come
get
from
injured straight.
2-1 down to win 3-2.
And then he's going to get injured when he kicks the corner flag and it pings him in the eye and he'll be out for another 4 weeks. He's going to do it in homage of Matt Ritchie, and get himself injured from that. Well, then there you go. Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you're a Brighton fan, let us know how you think the game's going to go. Are you making the long journey up? And then are you making the long journey up the stairs to get to level 7? Let us know how that's going to be for you. Hope you don't get nosebleeds. It's getting all the way up there. And then let us know how your journey back down goes if you watch us afterwards. Although I don't know why you'd watch a match preview after the game, because we will be doing a match reaction. So watch that instead. If you've liked this one, comments below. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the thumbs down if you haven't. Let us know your predictions. Let us know, I don't know, what's your favorite emoji? Put it in the comments below. I don't care. Just any form of interaction helps us on this video. Or machine. Yes. No. There you go. Also, comment below if you want Daryl to change his calendar, because he's still got last month's calendar and it's the 16th of October. He's still got it up. Change it. It should be Tino Livramento on that wall.
Is that bad?
And it's still got Harvey Barnes up there. I only know because it's in my kitchen, because I got one for Christmas.
This is why we couldn't score.
This is why we couldn't score, because Daryl's bad omen on me by not changing his calendar. So let me know in the comments below. Just say, Daryl, change your calendar. That's all I need you to do. And by the next match preview, Daryl should hopefully change his calendar. It'll still be October by the next match, won't it? Yeah, it will be. It's only the 16th. So yeah, if Daryl's on it, he'll hopefully have changed his calendar. But while you're down there, like I say, if you like it, hit the thumbs up. If you haven't, hit the thumbs down. If you want to see more of our content, you can become a subscriber. It's absolutely free to do so. When you do that, the little bell appears. If you hit that bell, you'll get a notification when we post new content on this channel. And if you want to become a member, you can absolutely do that as well. It's $2.99 a month. That gets you early access to videos like this one. It gets you exclusive access to certain videos and podcasts, and it gets you access to the Telegram group. We've just posted today a new episode of Canny Chatter. You get Group B of the Scrampions League, which is the food version of the Champions League, as well as that. And for members, that's exclusively available on YouTube as video content. For non-members, you can get that on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast channels as well. And if you're listening to this on those podcast channels, just give us a 5-star rating. That's all we ask for. But anyway, boys, I've said enough. Premier League football's back. Finally. Although now we've got an England manager, kind of want to see how England play, although he's not starting until January. So we'll let him prepare his team, and hopefully he'll pick a few more Newcastle players by the time January comes. We'll see what happens. But boys, thanks for your time this evening. Everybody who listening and watching, thank you for your time as well. We will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody. Ta-da.
Bye.